In this video, we're going to do a market recap of our residential community. So we're going to do a deep dive on Palmetto Hall, Indigo Run, Spanish Wells, Windmill Harbor, Port Royal, Hilton Head Plantation, all of those communities, one, that aren't private, and two, that do not allow short-term rentals. So we're talking about permanent residents, second homes, no short-term rentals. We're going to find out what's going on in these communities, pricing wise, how are we negotiating, what do we expect to happen in the near future here in 2023. So hang with me, we'll go over a couple of charts. We'll talk about what these charts are doing, what buyers are thinking, what sellers are thinking, hopefully give you a good idea where the market is. So stay tuned. So we're going to start our charts with a pricing chart, and really we're just going to look at the last 5 years. This is pretty common knowledge, and this is across the board, across the island. This is what has happened and is happening with prices. We obviously are bouncing up year over year since 2019. Let's be honest, it was the pandemic that really started to shoot us up. So you can see year over year prices going up. Average home price in these communities over $800,000. If you look at our next slide here, which is going to be our month over month, so we're looking at 2022 and we're looking month over month. What we've been seeing is that there was sort of this peak in June. Everything started to kind of fall off, and then we started to grow again, which the grow again part was a little bit surprising. Interest rates started going up. Economic news was not good, which is why we saw things start to fall off in June. And really, the news hasn't changed. They continue to raise interest rates. The real estate news hasn't gotten any better. Interest rates have kind of stabilized, but for your communities, I don't think interest rates matter all that much. These are probably second homes. These are probably retirement homes. Somebody selling something in order to come here. These are usually being purchased in cash. Now, that whole selling my home in order to get here might have some effect on how quickly people get here, but once that home is sold and they retire to the island, they're usually coming with cash. The interest thing may or may not matter. Back to the chart. What we're seeing here, though, is in September, October, November, all of a sudden, our prices start to go up again. I think we got used to the bad news. I think it started to get cold up north. People wanted to be in the south. And all of a sudden, our prices start going up. Our demand, for whatever reason, came back. Where it went away in June, July, August, it came back in September, October, November. Now, you can see in December, we've kind of lost a little bit of that momentum. That could be the holidays, that could be the season. I would suspect it's going to kind of continue that way a little bit until we get to the spring. And I've got theories on why that happens that I'll explain in a bit. This next chart we want to look at negotiations. So when I put my home on the market and I have it at a list price, what's the difference between that list price and what I'm willing to accept in the sale of the home? So you can see here that we really didn't negotiate at all through September of last year. Through September of last year. Then all of a sudden we started to negotiate a little bit at a time. And interestingly enough, our prices look like they went down in December, but we negotiated less than we did in November. The data's funky. We got a little bit of a trend here that we are starting to come down from our September, we'll call it September highs of negotiations. And we're starting to negotiate a little bit more. Typically this happens when there are more homes on the market. Typically this happens when the market starts to slow down. As a seller, I put my home on the market and I've got a plan, and my plan is selling this home so that I can move on to whatever the next thing is. The longer that takes, the more aggressive I become, because I want to fulfill the obligations of my plan. I want to get to that last goal. And if selling my home is part of that goal and it's going to get me there, then I'm going to sell my home. So we sit on the market for a little bit, we start to lower our price, and or we start to say, okay, we will accept something less than our list price. And when an offer comes in, we're then at that point willing to negotiate, which is what we're starting to see. I have a feeling that we'll start to see this for the next few months, and then the spring might turn some things around for us. So as we thought with this next slide, our days on the market have grown. Now, let's be honest, if you look at days on the market and you're talking about 2 weeks, 3 weeks on the market, that is not very long. Heck, 40 days on the market is not very long. I think the average home on the island pre-pandemic was like 100 days. So we're far lower than where we normally are on the island when you look at this on a grander scale, when you look at this over the course of 5 or 10 years. But we're starting to see that homes did sit on the market a little bit longer. Therefore, it makes sense that we negotiated a little bit more. Now, if we look at the next slide, this tells us that inventory should be going up if homes are sitting on the market. Funny enough, they're not really going up. When you look at November to December, now my theory on November inventory is that sellers are essentially not putting their home on the market right now. It's cold. They're here enjoying it potentially. They don't want to go back north. They want to keep their home here. And so therefore, even though homes are sitting a little bit longer, we don't have a lot of new inventory coming to the market. And therefore, our inventory itself, our grand number of inventory, is staying low. So we're less than 3 months of inventory for these houses on the market. There's nothing to look at. And really, if a buyer comes into town, looks at these communities, looks at these homes, and you and I know they don't look at every community, they don't like every community. So they're only looking at a few select communities, and therefore there's only a few select houses for them to look at. They come into town, they don't like anything, there's nothing else to do, there's nothing else to choose from. So therefore, they've got to wait for homes to come to the market. And that is where the market starts to change. When buyers start to wait because they don't like, they're ready to buy, cash is in hand. I want a home on Hilton Head Island, but I can't find what I like, so I'm just going to wait it out. They start to get more aggressive, and that's when the market starts to change.